Welcome to the top-notch philosophical channel, where we explore the deep and complex world of philosophy and theories. From ancient philosophers, do not forget to click the subscribe button and the notification bell so you can be notified the next time we upload a great video like this. Without wasting much of your time, let's delve into today's discussion. In this video, we will examine one of the greatest Japanese swordsmen and philosophers, Miyamoto Musashi. But first, we must understand Ronin before delving into Miyamoto Musashi's historical principle. A samurai who is wandering alone without a master is referred to as a Ronin in Japanese. Throughout history, Ronin had varying statuses. In fact, being a Ronin signifies failure in general. More precisely, a Ronin had forsaken the practice of seppuku, a form of ritual suicide employed in Japan to restore honor following a defeat. Those who denied seppuku were condemned and had a bad reputation. Some Ronin followed their own paths and became mercenaries and bodyguards, while others turned to crime. Miyamoto Musashi, one of the most illustrious Ronin, is widely recognized as the best swordsman in Japan and has been unbeaten in more than 60 battles. After escaping death during the Battle of Sekigahara while serving General Hideyori, Musashi turned to become a Ronin. In addition to being a skilled swordsman, he was also a Buddhist scholar, artist, and philosopher. Musashi left us, among other works of literature, the Dokkodo, or set of 21 rules for individuals who walk alone, which he wrote just before he passed away. Although the samurai era is long past, Musashi's values are still relevant today and can motivate us to live properly. We're going to be exploring the 21 principles for living a fulfilling life from Musashi's Dokkodo in a 3-part series. In this video, we'll explore the first 7 principles of Miyamoto Musashi and what they mean for our present day-to-day lives. Please note that the elaborations in this video are based on existing philosophies, the author's interpretations and reasoning, and are intended to be an inspiration for present-day life. Number 1, accept everything just the way it is. Miyamoto Musashi uses the technique of sword fighting to describe the path of the warrior in the Book of 5 Rings. It becomes obvious after reading this book that the way refers to a life of constant practice. The only way to practice that is truly successful is by accepting things as they are without judgment or resistance, especially when viewing this through a Buddhist lens. If we are not prepared to start as beginners, we will not advance. Although adhering to this principle can be difficult, accepting the way things are, for instance, helps the mind become stronger through meditation practice and reduces unnecessary distress. Musashi, however, takes a step further and advises the fighter to firmly embrace death. According to ancient Japanese customs, death is not only a necessary component of existence, but also a fate that is acceptable to maintain honor. The concept of honorable death, which occurs when continuing to live would be dishonorable, such as when a person has failed in duty, is the foundation of the seppuku act. This view is now excessive, especially in the modern Western mentality. However, the unwavering acceptance of death might help us embrace the fact that we will all travel this route at some point. The Buddhist practice of corpse meditation allows practitioners to think about death, either in the presence of a real corpse or just in their imagination. A Buddhist can accept the fact of death by repeating this practice. We can say that the ability to tolerate being alone is crucial for a Ronin. For example, Musashi was forced to face the world without the guidance of a school or teacher, traveling the globe and engaging in battles to further develop his skills. As a result, he traveled a very solitary path, where success only comes when aloneness is accepted. 2, do not seek pleasure for its own sake. Musashi put ethics before pleasure while being a Ronin. He had the option of turning into a thief or a mercenary, but instead, he chose to grow spiritually, master the long sword, and make several sacrifices for the greater good. Pleasure should, at most, be a byproduct of one's pursuit of integrity. The definition of virtue varies across historical eras because of shifts in ethics and moral philosophy. However, we may distinguish between pleasure-seeking or the pursuit of egotistical sense gratification and doing good deeds for the world without taking sense fulfillment into account. Musashi's perspective on pleasure is extremely comparable to that of the Stoic and the Buddhist, both of which are characterized by a feeling of restraint. Epictetus, for instance, contended that resisting pleasure is preferable to be overcome by it in the long run. Buddhists contend that sensory pleasure isn't actually enjoyable. Rather, it's only a scratch on an itch, one that, if left unattended, will become worse and eventually lead us astray. It can be crucial for a Ronin to resist the urge to indulge in pleasure. The quest for pleasure can turn into a trap for Ronins who are out on the streets alone, entangling them in the world in negative ways. In addition to keeping people worldly, the pursuit of delectable food, cheap entertainment, and lust not only ties people to the mundane, it also holds them back from practice, which, according to Musashi, could lead to a deeper spiritual understanding. In his days of solitude, Musashi could never have perfected his swordsmanship if he had indulged in pleasure. No. 3. Do not under any circumstances depend on a partial feeling. Feelings are significant because they are a sign that something is happening. However, they don't always make the best decisions. The issue with feelings is that they frequently stem from irrational thinking, which means they are based on a false perception of reality. As a result, feelings are frequently partial since they don't provide us with the complete picture, which means that acting on them may result in behaviors that are unwise and harmful. Instead, rationality, logic, and reason, or to put it another way, it is more trustworthy to evaluate a scenario and observe our sensations when we are thinking clearly. We must thus be aware of what is happening in our bodies and thoughts. Are we overpowered by emotions? Do we have a fearful or an angry base? If this is the case, our best course of action is to give our minds some space to clear before re-evaluating the scenario. It goes without saying that conflicts must be waged with a clear head, and enemies should be treated with intellectual clarity rather than emotion, as the latter is harmful to our abilities and may result in foolish decisions. No. 4. Think lightly of yourself and deeply of the world. Miyamoto Musashi was both ruthless and modest at the same time, conscious of his smallness in the grand scheme of things and prepared to work for the common good. By having a low opinion of ourselves, we admit that we are not very significant. As humans, we are of course valuable by nature, yet even if we died tomorrow, the planet would probably continue to revolve. We are exceedingly small, and more importantly, reliant on the whole if we think of the universe as a whole. When we are so completely reliant on our surroundings, why do we think so highly of ourselves and place ourselves above them? The universe is considerably larger than this tiny ego in our heads, and is tremendously huge, complex, and multifaceted. We also understand that as a result of this realization, not being modest is illogical. Being alone in the world may be an eye-opening experience in terms of how little and fragile we are, and a Ronin was likely aware of this. Therefore, it's not a terrible thing to occasionally doubt ourselves and consider how important our lives are. This doesn't imply that we should ignore ourselves, but rather that we should always make an effort to keep in mind how big or little we are with the rest of the world to avoid overestimating ourselves and developing false self-perceptions. No. 5. Be detached from desire your whole life long. The opposites of aversion and desire are the same. If we have an aversion to anything, it suggests that we want to avoid experiencing that aversion. Desire, then, is when we let anything outside of ourselves determine our level of enjoyment. We can't change external conditions, so if we let them determine how happy we are putting ourselves in a risky situation. This approach to desire is obviously very stoic. Buddhists believe that desire, or more precisely attachment, is what causes suffering. Being obsessed with our pursuit of material objects, with the expectation that they will bring us happiness, indicates that we are attached to want. Despite the size of the outside world and our own relative insignificance, Musashi teaches us that the secret to happiness resides within. Nothing outside of yourself can ever help you get better, stronger, richer, quicker, or smarter. I quote, "Every piece is inside. Everything is real. Nothing outside of you should be sought." We could therefore conclude that even though we should be humble before the infinite size of the universe, our attention should be on what we do inside it rather than what we can gain from it, because the latter is unreliable. According to Epictetus, a philosopher of the Stoic school, the things under our control are by nature free, unrestrained, and unhindered. But the things under others' control are weak, slavish, restrained, and belonging to them. Musashi correctly understood that wishing for things that are out of our control is not a suitable way to live. Experience has also taught us that the following desire may develop into addiction. 6. Do not regret what you have done. Building lasting relationships and avoiding past mistakes in the future requires the ability to reflect on our actions, by identifying what went wrong and consider how we might have damaged other people. However, continually criticizing ourselves for past errors will not benefit anyone. At most, we can convey to others that we regret what we did, which is beneficial, but eventually, moving forward is the only option. Furthermore, a lot of unfortunate events often turn out to be blessings in disguise. Wisdom also follows harm and humiliation. Realizing how detrimental our own acts are gives us the chance to be more watchful and sympathetic, which keeps us from experiencing more suffering in the future. When you lose, don't lose the lesson, advised the Tibetan spiritual leader. In addition, judgments that look poor now could turn out to be excellent choices tomorrow, because we can never fully foretell how the future will play out. No. 7. Never be jealous. Resentment becomes a constant when one faces the world alone, like a ronin. Being an outsider frequently entails lacking what other people have, particularly in terms of possessions and relationships with others. For a ronin, it even meant being homeless, traveling the world, and having no place to call home. Therefore, it is easy to feel jealous of others who possess things you do not. When we are single, when we are wealthy, when we are poor, and when we are treated with disrespect, we may gaze at couples, wealthy individuals, and popular people with jealousy. It is suffering brought on by the longing for things to be different than they are, and the desire for what other people possess, but which, for some reason, we do not. It's not a good idea to carry around negative emotions when we're out on our own because they will just make us feel worse. Everything we put into cruelly comparing ourselves to others is a waste of energy because the only thing we have control over is our own faculties. Ronins would do better to concentrate on their own deeds, and if required, to stroll around wearing blinkers. These are the first 7 principles of the Dokkodo by Miyamoto Musashi. In the next video, we'll explore the next 7 principles and what they can teach us about living a fulfilling life. Thank you for watching.